Hey, what's up? So we're a couple places you can retire right now that are actually going to be places you'd actually want to live, high quality standard of living, and very, very cheap health care. That's the key. Let's get into it. So let's get into these countries. So first thing I want to say is there's nothing against the U.S. healthcare system. I live in the United States. What this rating is going to be based off of is, the quality of the care versus basically the cost. So obviously ours costs a little bit more. Our quality is probably in the highest, but basically when you add costs and things like that into it, it's going to obviously affect it. So it moves way down the list. So let's say you're looking for retirement somewhere, somewhere else besides the United States. You want to go maybe to Europe or somewhere like that. Where are some countries that you can get great quality health care, have a great quality of life, and move to, and then have, don't spend as much money as you do here in the United States. Go ahead and stay tuned. We're going to get into it, and I'm going to show you these places. I've actually been to both of these places, so I'm going to show you a couple little pictures that I've taken over the time here, and obviously you guys can look at those pictures, and they're personal to me because one was on my honeymoon and one was just on a vacation with my wife. But I just want to show people like how nice some of these countries are, and they do have really good healthcare systems as well. All right, a couple things too. So about 80% of everyone in the United States right now, they actually feel like healthcare is the number one concern when they retire. So the cost of healthcare is pretty important to them. So what I'm going to cover is these two different countries that you can actually go to that are going to really kind of ease the pain there. Now, I'm not going to go through basically exactly how to get into the countries. That's going to be in another video maybe. So you have to kind of go through the whole immigration process and things like that. There's ways to get jobs there, whatever, however you want to get in. Long story short, though, I'm not going to cover that here. I'm just going to cover, once you're in, what you pay for, basic costs for healthcare and things like that. Keep in mind that, I'm not going to give you exact costs. These things are basically going to be anywhere from close to free to maybe a few $100s a month, somewhere in that range, and you get a huge quality care. It's not going to be anywhere like anything over like $150 a month or something like that. So keep that in mind when we're looking at this. All right, before we actually go any further, there's a lot of countries that a lot of people know about, and they always hear like Switzerland, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Austria. These are countries that a lot of people would love to live in because they're beautiful. High quality of life. In Switzerland, look at Switzerland. But basically the problem is the cost of living. You move there and it's, $45 for a hamburger, things like that. So it's crazy. I've been there. I'll show, let me just show a chart here right now just to show you the difference between like Switzerland and another country, just to show you how crazy the prices are. Look at this. All right, so take a look at this. So this is actually a good website, NUMBEO, and to put in cost of living, and it's going to show you some really cool statistics and cost of living in different countries. Let's go ahead and scroll down. I just want to show you. So Zurich, so how expensive is these countries like Switzerland and Finland and stuff like that? So let's compare it to Prague. So let's say you wanted to live in Zurich versus Prague. Look at this. So for example, an inexpensive restaurant meal is $25 for basically a person in Zurich, $6 in Prague. A meal for two people is $103 in Zurich. Think about that, $103. This is going to be a medium range restaurant, and it's only $33 in Prague. Beer basically, $7 in Zurich, $1.77 in Prague. Cappuccino, $5.21 in Zurich, $2.42. It gets $4.33 for a Coke, $1.39 in Prague. And then you go down, obviously the food and everything else, but just look at like one-way ticket, local transport, $1.06 in Prague, $4.34 in Zurich. Taxis, 1 mile, $1.99 versus $7.50 in Zurich. Crazy. And then it just gets worse and worse as you go down. Look at the rent. 1 month in the city center, 1 bedroom, $898. Outside the city center in Prague, $661 a month. In Zurich, $1,902 for a 1 bedroom around the city for a 1 bedroom, $1,400 outside. But if you want a 3 bedroom, you're up to $3,500 a month plus. So very expensive place to live. And so obviously that's why we're not, going to pick those countries. All right, so let's get into this now. I'm going to go through the two countries. So let's keep in mind, I'm actually basing this off what they call the Legatum Institute study, and I'm reading it off of here because it's, it's the Prosperity Index. So long story short, it basically ranks the healthcare systems of all these, developed countries in the world. So go ahead and you can check that out. I'll actually have a link to it in the description if you want to check that out. But long story short, the ones that I want to kind of go over today are going to be based off of that. So the United States on that list of all the countries in the world ranks it at 37. So we're 37th out of, a couple hundred. Not bad, but basically it does, the cost of the healthcare is a huge factor. So you keep that in mind. And then the countries that I'm going to be looking at today are going to be a lot lower on that list. And so without further ado, let's get into them. Also, I'm going to show you some, like I said, some personal pictures, so stay tuned for that, just to kind of show you the countries and things like that, and we'll make this a little bit fun for everyone. So the first one on the list is actually Italy. So So Italy's actually may or may not be a surprise, but it comes in at number 2 on the list. Now, granted, the list has other ones, like France is actually number 1, and there's some reasons for it, but I'm not, I think Italy is a better choice for basically for the quality of living. That's the other part of it as far as how much you can spend per month and live there. France is a lot more expensive. So Italy's number 2 on the healthcare list, is the best places for healthcare. And a couple of reasons for it is it's got a really high number of doctors per patient, which is number 1. And obviously that's a great thing. It's got a universal healthcare system. And again, I'm not always advocating for universal healthcare. In fact, the United States has a good process, or they could have a good process. But long story short, these countries can do it, and a lot of times in Europe and things like that, because they do have smaller populations. But the fact of the matter is they do actually do a good job at it. And so Italy comes in there because your healthcare costs anywhere from like $100 a month to a lot of people get it for free. And you pay more in taxes. Now don't forget you're paying VAT taxes and a bunch of other things on top of it to get that. So it doesn't come for free. And you just have to kind of weigh your options of where where you want to spend your money when you want to spend it. So Italy also has really good access to some of the cutting edge drugs and things like that. So if you have a medical condition, you can get access to that. That's another factor in this. If you look at a map of Italy, there's the southern section and the northern section. The northern sections, I'm going to show you some pictures in a second, but basically that's basically going to be like Verona, really rich area, Venice, Milan, even down to Bologna, that kind of area up at the top. You generally get better healthcare up there because it's a little bit richer area in Italy. So statistically, obviously there's different hospitals and things that are going to change. Obviously one might be better than the other in the south, but generally speaking, the north is a little bit better to live for medical than the south. And then again, the cost of living here is pretty cheap. So in Italy, you can get by. If you're retired and you don't have a ton of expenses, they say about $25,000 a year, including your health care, you can get by on. And you may have to live a little bit outside of the cities, the big cities, but you can always travel in. They have good train systems and things like that. So $25,000, if you can get in. The question is, can you get into the country? There's a process for that, and we'll cover that later. But anyways, Italy is the number 1 that I kind of think that's a good option for you as far as living. Let me go ahead and show you some of my pictures. And I went to Italy for my honeymoon. I went to Verona, Bologna, Venice, Milan, Bergamo, a bunch of different places up there. So Lake Como. So here's some pictures. All right, so the second one on the list, I just got back from this country, just went on a vacation there, loved it. It was beautiful, great food, great atmosphere, great weather, and it's pretty cheap to live, and it's got great hospitals. So it's going to actually be Spain. So on that index, it's basically going to be ranked 7th. And again, the United States was ranked 37th, so 7th is pretty good in the entire world. So obviously there's some issues with Spain and some, again, same thing with, obviously some employment things and there's more higher unemployment rate there and things like that. But we're talking retirement. They have higher taxes in some cases as well, which are going to pay for some of the health care. But generally speaking, you're in that like $100 to $0 range when you actually live there. And it's got some kind of, fairly good, solid health insurance for retirees. Same thing with Spain. It's a little bit different, but like in the south, it might be a little bit harder to get it in some of the smaller cities. If you live next to a big city, it's going to be easy to get to the hospitals that are very good in Spain. Keep in mind that, the train system's incredible. We went over 350 miles like in 2 hours and 20 minutes or something. So going 195 miles an hour. So the trains aren't bad at all. They're cheap. Cost us, I think like $40 one way or something for a 350 mile trip or something. So at the end of the day, you can get around Spain pretty easily. Anyways, so let me go ahead and show you some pictures from Spain, my trip, just to show you what it's all about. I'll show about, 10 pictures or so. Stay tuned and I'll wrap this up at the end. All right, so what did you think? So 2 countries that you can actually retire in. Again, you have to get there first and you have to be able to stay there. I think right now, I mean, obviously if you're just vacationing, you can stay in any European country that's in a certain zone there. We're talking up to like basically Eastern Europe for about 3 months. And then you have to come out of the country for 6 months and you can go back for 3 months. So that doesn't work if you want to live there. You can also go to England for around 6 months, but then you have to come out for at least 6 months and come back. I think 6 or 3 months then come back. So you have to get there obviously long term. That's up to you. But if you do get there, the healthcare is really good in these countries. And so tell me what you think. I mean, obviously there's other countries. Portugal is another one that a lot of people listed in the different indexes and things like that. And I know it's really, really cheap to like kind of live there depending on where you live in there as well. Food's super cheap and there's a lot of things you can get there that's inexpensive. I mean, renting an apartment for maybe $400 or $500 a month is easy there. So anyways, that's another place. So go ahead and put your comments of some other countries if you can think of any, and we'll definitely maybe make another video later and kind of wrap that up. I make videos on technology, travel, finance, and things like that, mostly technology, but I like to do these videos every once in a while. So please subscribe, help me out. I'm almost to 1,000 subscribers. I want to continue to make these. I make them, on my free time, and I just want to get to the 1,000 subscribers so I can finally get past that mark. It's going to help me out a bunch, but thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.